Hi everyone. Um, so, let's see. I thought I was going to be doing a different video today, but my partner in crime is not here. So I guess I'm doing a story video today. So if she shows up, then either I'll switch over and you will never see this. Or I'll just keep going and then we can quickly do video and then I'll have it done for next week. We'll see. So anyway, so we have famous Kiki back here. What's he doing? Oh, just picking. And of course, RC's right there, front and center, where he belongs. Right? Right? Maybe he'll say something. Yeah, like that. Exactly. And hopefully you can hear finches. Actually, I hear parakeets. I don't hear finches. I hear parakeets. Maybe the finches will sing like they did last time. Milo is... I'm not too worried. Oh, he's up there. Right there. That's where he is. How many kids? The old woman in the old woman in the shoe. Said so many children she didn't know what to do. Yeah. Trying to locate them all. I know Minnie's on the top of the couch watching because Grandma and Grandpa have both left, so now she's all sad and she looks tired. So it's also nap time. And Daisy, we just got back from the vet from her annual appointment, and everything's great. She got her distemper shot, and she got her heartworm checked, and everything came out great. Got some nails trimmed, and of course, weight is always an issue, especially with dachshunds. We've been battling her weight and trying to make little changes here and there, so she doesn't get too upset over anything. And so the last several years she's been inching up a little bit every year, just like half a pound or so more, and so so last year it was decided that she gets prescription dog food because I don't know if you remember or if you know. That year-long struggle we had with her, she had her bladder was filled with stones, and it took us a whole year to get that figured out and taken care of, medication, special food, the whole thing. So finally they all dissolved, and it was very challenging for everybody, for several different reasons, and so now that she's in the clear, that means she has to eat prescription food for the rest of her life. So the anti-crystal food. So I buy a bag of dry food, and then I also buy canned food that it looks like stew. It looks like you could just pour it in the pan and eat it. And it's got peas and carrots and potatoes and chicken, and there's a gravy, and so it looks just like our food. And so I mix the two together. I give a handful like this, so just whatever, once a day, and then mix in the canned food. And then last year, her vet said, well, let's try reducing it down to just like this, not like this, but just like this. And then in the winter, when she doesn't go out for walks, then make it even a smaller closed fist of the dry kibble, and then mix in the a stew, and then of course we add table food because that's what she really likes. We just gotta watch the amounts of that. So, of course she always loses a little weight during the summer, gains it back in the winter, and so, but if she gets weighed in once a year, and so, so today, she weighed in at 13.1 pounds. Last year at about this time, she was 13.5, I think they said. So, and if you consider the fact that normally she gains a little bit of weight each year, she's actually lost, not only that extra that she would have gained, but also lost a little bit left. So she's she probably lost at least half a pound, probably more so. So obviously it's working. So, we were actually running out of the dry food, and so she and I were I don't know if I was talking to her because everything was over the phone. I had to sit outside in the car and then talk on the phone, and so I don't know if I was talking to a tech or the vet, but they mentioned that there is a moderate calorie version of her dry food, so I got a bag of that, and hopefully that will help too. So 13 pounds, she should be about somewhere between 10 and 12, 10 and 11, something like that. When we were really deep into getting rid of those stones, and we had her on this really special diet, she really lost weight. I think she went down to like 10 pounds, maybe even 9 point something, and I could feel ribs, and you could kind of see them too. I mean, she felt a lot lighter, and I didn't like that. I was not comfortable with that. So I would prefer her in the 11 to 12 range. That's where I would feel comfortable. Because they say too with dogs, if you look down at their backs, if they have that hourglass figure, so the ribs are out and then their waist comes in, that's what you want. If you can't see that they move more like straight or even barrel shaped, you don't want that, especially with dachshunds, and that's when they have back issues. And she's already had one major back event, and then at least a couple minor ones that she just that got better on their own. So yeah, so she's tired. She's sitting on the floor in front of me, so that takes a lot out of her. She gets really stressed out. That's the only time we get driving the car together is when we're going there. So she panics and pants and the whole thing on the way there. On the way back home, she's actually fine. She goes, "Okay, we're going home. We're fine." So yeah. So everything's good there. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So I see Milo came down a little bit. Right there. So, Jen's not here yet, so I guess I'm gonna continue with my story. So, I guess today. So last week I told the story about my first bird, Mr. Feathers, the parakeet. So I thought a good follow-up to that would be my first cockatiel. Since their stories tend to, their stories overlap, a lot. And so as I told you last week, I got Mr. Feathers in April of 1990. And then about somewhere around December or so, yeah, a classmate of mine, and I was in 10th grade, I think, at the time. And a classmate of mine approached me, maybe 11th grade, and his name was Mark, and he approached me and said, I have a bird that I can't take care of anymore. Would you like to take her? And so we talked further, and Mark was, and I'm assuming he still is. I've lost track of him after graduation. Mark was a farm boy, a nice guy. I always thought he was kind of dopey. um, I remember we were passing classes, and I was getting to where I needed to go, and I walked by his locker, and he was standing at his locker. Apparently, he wasn't in any hurry, and his locker was open, and there was two shelves, and our lockers had two shelves. Well, the lower shelf, which was about eye level, most of us had books or maybe snacks or whatever in our lockers. His lower shelf, he had tractors, like toy tractors, and he's sitting there, playing, and I'm like, Mark, really? So, yeah, but so he told me that he had, I can't remember what he had, like hamsters or something, and I can't remember now. And he had this bird, and he figured out that he didn't have the time to give the bird proper care and attention, which I thought was very smart of him. And so I said, well, okay. So I went home and talked to Mom, and she was very kind of reluctant. So I actually had to write up a contract promising that I would take care of the bird, and I don't remember what else. I don't even remember why, but so I did that, and she said okay, and then I remember it was like December 14th. For some reason, I remember that or him and his dad, I think, came over and dropped her off, and gave me some toys, a small coffee can of food, very simple play gym that he built out of piece of plywood and some dowels that he glued together and nailed. And then the bird and her cage, and a big orange beach towel with stripes on it, as her cover. And he goes, it's her bedtime already, so that's why she's covered. I'm like, okay. So I brought the whole thing in the house and set the cage over there by in the end of the living room where the play gym was, on the floor, because we weren't sure where we were going to put it. And then sat down on the couch, continued watching TV. I'd say, I don't know, I don't remember, 10 minutes later, maybe 30 minutes later, I'm not sure. Here comes Mr. Feathers. He had gotten down. He was over here. I think he was still in his old cage, which was over here. He had gotten down on his own, and he walked and started walking across the floor. Never had done that before, ever. And we're like, what is he doing? And he walks all the way across, and you figure this little bird, that's just a lot longer distance than it would be for us. So he walks all the way across the floor to Freeway's cage and just sat there. And so somehow he knew, I don't know what he knew, but he knew something, and just kind of hung out outside of her cage for a while, and then eventually he came walking back and then asked to get inside his cage. So I found out, I I did why her name was Freeway. I thought it was a weird name. In fact, I was gonna rename her Ladybird. I think. I think, but after she came here, then Freeways. We grew to like it. But I guess when he bought her, on the drive home, I don't know where. Must have been in the city somewhere. On the drive home, every time they, I guess every time they got on the freeway or something, I don't know. I guess she reacted somehow or whatever. So it's like, so that's why. I think that's something like that is what he told me. So, well, Freeway, eventually, I used to have a piano against this wall, an upright piano, and then we had a like a 3-drawer dresser on the end, and then that's Freeway's cage was put there, and then that's when I got this. Sorry, Arcee. I got that thing, and then that went, boy, parakeet stopped chirping. And then, so that went on top of the cage, and then Mr. Feather's cage, and then eventually after I got the hamster cage, that went on the other end of the living room, like I said last week. And so the routine became, in the morning, Freeway's towel got taken off, open up the door, she'd come out and spend the whole day on top of her cage. Mr. Feathers would come out of his cage, he'd put it on her hand, we'd carry him across, and he'd spend the day on top of the cage as well. And then that's pretty much where they spent. Of course, if Mr. Feathers wanted down, he either asked us by bobbing his head, and then we'd set him down, and then he'd walk across the floor to the play gym, and then he'd come back. We also had a tall wooden ladder, I'd say foot and a half long. Hold on. Hey, neighbors! You have to tell the dogs neighbors, and then because they know that means nobody's here. So it usually works. Because a neighbor drove up in their driveway. So anyway, so we had a ladder, I'd say about a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet tall, that leaned up against the easy chair here with a paper towel underneath, and Freeway liked to sit on that ladder near the top and just sit there. And she did no investigating. She didn't try to climb on anything. That's what she liked to do. That, or she would get down and walk to the play gym to eat spray millet. And then of course, and sometimes she'd sit on her own because that was sitting there too. Or then she'd come back and sit on her ladder, and she'd sit there for hours until she wanted to come back up to the cage. Freeway was a princess, through and through. You had to do everything for her. If she wanted you to scratch her head, as you walked by, she put her head down and you had to scratch it. And if for some reason you hit some spot that she didn't like, and then she put her head down again so that you could try again. But we all spent lots of time, scratching her head. And she's the only bird that has let me do that. She's the only cockatiel I've ever had that no one since. If she wanted to get down on the floor so she could sit on her ladder, she would start until someone came by and offered their finger, got her down. She would not flare down on her own. You had to carry her, bring her down. If she wanted to go back up, then she'd sit on her ladder and kind of, and then you'd have to, stop what you were doing and give her your finger, and then carry you back up. If she had a very specific bedtime, usually it was between 7 and 9 o'clock, when she decided it was time for her to bed. She would not go into her cage on her own. She would start until you came. Somebody went over there and she get on your finger, and then go into her cage. You had to lock the door, take that thing off, and then you cover her cage with the towel. We found out that she was a little OCD, and a little, and the stripes in the towel had to go across. My mom and I were on the same bowling league, and we came home one night, and my father had put her to bed, but he goes, she won't stop yelling, and you could hear this like from inside the cage. And I looked at it, and I knew immediately what was wrong. The stripes were going this way, so I just turned the towel, and she was fine. So, yeah. There was a time when my mom was laid off, and Freebie took a really strong liking to my mom, and so if my mom was doing stuff in the house, if she left and she went to another different room out of her sight, Freebie would yell and scream until Mom would come back, and sometimes she had to get her on her finger and bring her to the room she was in, just so that she would stay happy. So that was, and of course the whole time, Mr. Feathers idolized her. Like I said last week, he would stare at her and would was always by her side, and she wanted nothing to do with him, ignored him, would kind of at him. And one day, yes, I was at the table, and hey, there's a neighbor outside. And both birds, at the time we had tall back chairs that were cloth. And both birds, Mr. Feathers was somehow balanced on there. He was able to do that. And Freeway was next to him. And all of a sudden she put her head down to him, as in scratched my head. That had never happened before, and never happened again. And I could tell he was in total heaven as he very gently massaged her head. And it's like, to her it felt good, and to him it was like, this is a dream come true. I could just see it in his little face. I mean, it's just, I was like, holy cow, Mr. Feathers. I was so happy for him. He finally got to express his love for her. So, even if it's just that small way. So Freeway, and then I don't remember how old she was. She laid an egg. And then another egg, and then another egg, and then, again, I didn't know anything about birds. Shortly after I got Mr. Feathers, I started subscribing to, there was a magazine at the time called the Bird Talk magazine. It was a monthly publication, and now I'm not even sure if it's in publication at all. If it is, it's an annual one, but at the time, and of course, like I said, this was 1990, 91, so this was even before the Wild Bird Cage Act law had been signed into law. So there was a lot of articles about how to tell the difference between a wild caught bird and a bird that was bred here in the United States. This was basically before the internet was common in people's homes. There was, I mean, just grit was considered an essential part of bird care, and now they're saying no. Only certain types of birds, like say chickens, should have grit in their cage. These guys don't need it. So I've watched as what is considered bird care has totally changed from 1990, and it's the terms like foraging and there's other terms that are now common concepts that wasn't then. And I remember when the internet started to become more common, and so you started, if you have the internet, go on, and actually said, go on the World Wide Web. It's like, this is like, as people were getting used to this, then it's like, I would spell www dot, whatever. And I don't know how many, going, if you have the World Wide Web, and so just watching as bird care changed and how times changed and everything. It's very, that was totally interesting. But and so let's see. Okay, so I had to think there. And so I found out that so I had given her a Kleenex box to keep her eggs in, and eventually I learned through Bird Talk magazine and other sources that if you're not breeding your birds, don't do that. that just encourages further egg laying, whatever. Plus, she became a monster once she had those eggs. If you went anywhere near her cage, because now she was in her cage, and she became this monster, she'd come flying. You even put your hand anywhere close to the cage, she'd come flying with her beak, and she was like a barracuda, just ready to attack. Only she would keep laying eggs, and pretty soon she had 10 eggs, 15 eggs, which is not normal. That is not a normal clutch size for a cockatiel. And then eventually they'd all, because obviously she was the only cockatiel, so eventually they all dried up, and then she'd go back to doing her normal bird stuff, and then pretty soon she'd start laying again. This went on for I don't know how long, and then one day she jumped off the cage onto the floor for whatever reason, and she broke something. I can't remember what. I don't know if it was a wing or a leg. I can't remember. So I brought her in the vet. Now, at the time I might have still been a student, a vet tech student, and maybe a part-time job, maybe 2 part-time jobs, but I wasn't making a whole lot. So I really couldn't afford vet care, but I went anyway. So I found an avian vet nearby, and they said that because of all that egg laying, that it was leaching the calcium out of her body, and so that's why she broke whatever it is she broke. I don't even remember. And so they said that, so they gave her a shot of HCG, human chorioptic gonadotropin. And so they gave her a shot. They gave me like 4 more syringes, and then I had a schedule where I had to give her another injection. I think it was like every other day, I think, something like that. and that was supposed to stop the egg laying. And then they said anytime she starts laying, as soon as she lays an egg, get her, bring her back in so that she can get another series of shots. And so that's what I ended up having to do. And of course, this was expensive, but I got it all, um, so, so she, let's see, and then, I don't remember, I don't know, I don't remember what year, but, she, I don't know, I think it all kind of happened all of a sudden. All of a sudden I realized she, was having trouble breathing, and, she'd move a little bit, so I called the vet, made an appointment for a few days later, and over the course of those few days, she got a little worse, and I was waiting for her appointment, and so the day of her appointment came. I brought her in. At that point, she was to the point where if she sat just very still, she was fine. But as soon as you moved her, she really could not catch her breath. And then at that same time, she wasn't pooping as often as she normally did. And when she did, it smelled really bad. I don't know if I think those of you who have birds or have known birds, bird doo does not smell normally. If it does smell, there's usually something wrong. And hers just, it really smelled bad. And so brought her in on her appointment and talked to her vet, and she said, without doing an x-ray, she goes, I can tell there's a tumor inside of her that's cutting off her intestinal tract, and therefore that's what's preventing her from pooping as often as she should have been, and therefore all the nasty stuff was backing up in her system and was starting to enter her lungs and air sacs, and that was what was causing the difficulty breathing. She goes, I could do an x-ray, but I don't think she will survive it. If she can't even breathe if she moves, she wouldn't survive an x-ray. So, she goes, there's nothing more I could do, she told me. So I had to make the awful decision to put her down that day. And so yeah, she was about, I know last week I kept saying that Mr. Fez was about 12, but when I watched the video back, I realized that if I bought him in 1990 and he was 8 months old, and I know he died around like 2000 or so, that he was more like 10, 11 years old, maybe close to 12, but whatever. But the numbers to me didn't add up to 12. But I think Freeway was. I think I really think she was 12. Without thinking too hard about it. So, and then after her, then that started a line of cocktails. Oh my goodness, no reason for that. I'm starting to think that's like an alarm call, because a lot of times things will happen. He'll do that, but I see nothing going on outside, so I don't know why he did that. But I have always had a cockatiel. From the time I got Freeway, I have always had one, except for the short periods of time between them. And you figure I was 16 years old. That was 30 years ago. I've had birds for 30 years, and I've had 6 cockatiels that whole time, and Lemon and Milo I had at the same time. So that ain't bad. There were 2 in there that did not live very long. I'll save them for their stories for another day. But yeah, 6 cockatiels in 30 years. Doing pretty good, I think. So they're good birds. They're they're really good like first birds. Or that's all you want. That's fine. So 35 minutes in. I try not to go past 30 minutes. So I guess I'm done talking. So if you have questions, I'm glad to answer them in the comments. I keep forgetting to mention. If there's anything you want me to talk about, is there any kind of any topic of story you want me to tell, or something that you think everybody would want to hear? Kind of like I take song requests. I'll take story requests. I don't know if we want to get into a truth or dare type of situation, but that may be fun too. So see what you guys want to come up with. I'm willing to put myself out there. As I said with the Yum boxes, it's like, yeah, I'll go through a little bit of a discomfort for your entertainment. Sure, why not? So yeah. Finches weren't really very singy today, I guess, and everybody just kind of stayed in the line, I guess. That's okay. So I have no idea what I really don't know what I'm going to do on Sunday, so I got to start thinking about that. And it's Wednesday, so yeah. So see you around and see you then. Bye.